And welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. Of course, tonight we've got John Gamso on the big board, and I'm your host, Pat Ford. And as I always say, it is a singular honor to spend an hour virtually with, I believe, some of the greatest candidates in the United States. Not just the Libertarian Party, but I believe that time is now. We are the present. We are the future. This is our time as libertarians. Over the past year, going on year and a half, I've had the pleasure of interviewing dozens of libertarian candidates running literally at every level of American governance. From town council people to water boards to school boards to the United States Senate. We have people who are qualified to run, are morally, technically, socially, but most importantly, philosophically fit to steward, we don't like the word govern here, to steward the resources of their communities and bring people to a point where not only can they enjoy peace in their lifetime, prosperity and freedom as well. As always, the mantras. We want to give the libertarian community an opportunity to meet these amazing people. I believe that one of the highest levels of personal sacrifice in our country, in the world that we occupy right now, is to run for political office. You give so much of yourself during your candidacy, probably during the years that you spent in public service running up to that candidacy. If you are so fortunate as to be elected, the time you spend engaging with your community, on many cases on almost a daily basis, the time away from your family, the financial sacrifices you make. We want people to understand across the United States and now the libertarian world, if you will, that candidates like tonight, Mr. Getz, who's running to be the mayor of East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, are important to the future of this movement, to this philosophy, as folks running in their hometown. As we always say, for many people, the very first time that they'll actually meet a libertarian will be a libertarian running for office, particularly in states which are just building up that affiliate structure that we've demonstrated so aptly on our Monday night show. Finally, we need to find a way to support our candidates nationally in the same manner that folks from across the political spectrum do. Your contributions to any one of these candidates, a handful of dollars. We know these are difficult times. We know that businesses have suffered greatly. So many of our libertarian brothers and sisters are involved in entrepreneurship as an extension of the self-ownership that is, in fact, in the DNA of every single libertarian. We realize that. But if in the aggregate, we always say, and it's so obvious, if that every libertarian could spare a couple dollars here and a couple dollars there, nearly 2 million Americans voted for our uniquely libertarian presidential candidate, Jo Jorgensen, and her running mate vice candidate, Spike Cohen, just last year, which, as an article in Reason magazine pointed out, the true creation of a libertarian base. We've had wonderful presidential candidates in the past. I'm here because of Gary Johnson. But the notion that there exists a libertarian community who will seek out a candidate who may not have the national political exposure that some, may not have the name recognition of some, and support them in the manner that they did gives us proof positive that our future is here and now. Joining us tonight is Joel Getz. He is running to be the mayor of the, what I'll call the Paris of Eastern Pennsylvania, East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Thank you for joining us, Joel.
Great to be here, Pat. Thank you so much for having me. And I believe with some libertarian principles and ideas, we can turn East Stroudsburg into the Paris of Northeast Pennsylvania, like you said.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, when you think of the unique cuisine of Northeastern Pennsylvania, and one word comes to mind, of course, that's Scrapple. All right. And which at some point in the show, you're going to define for the folks as part of sort of the cultural recognition you bring to your hometown, you bring to your burg, you bring it to your community. as we explore the economy and the community of Greater Metropolitan East Stroudsburg, I think that's a mandatory part, if I can use that word. And yes, you are being detained until you define what Scrapple is. But Joel, let's get to the important stuff. Tell us about yourself. As always, we love to hear the stories about hope, that libertarian moment. Just like one of my favorite philosophers, someone that I've looked to for my entire life. When he appears in the media, there's very often that moment, that apocryphal moment, when in fact a connection is made not only with the audience but with a philosophy and idea. Of course, I'm talking about Bugs Bunny, when the light bulb goes up over the head. When was that for you, Joel Getz?
For me, it was watching a debate, and I don't remember if it was 2008 or 2012, but Ron Paul was in it, and he made a comment during the debate that a lot of the audience laughed at, but it resonated with me. And basically what he did was he was talking about the decriminalization of drugs, and he said, well, how many of you here who don't do heroin now would suddenly start doing it if it was legal? And no one moved a muscle. And that made me think about it. Well, yeah, I guess making it illegal really doesn't do much other than make things worse. And that's what started me on the path. And of course, then I started looking into Ron Paul more, and I liked that. And I know, Gary Johnson, there are different segments of the party who love or don't love Gary Johnson. But when his campaign got me even more excited about the party, because he said a lot of libertarian things, but in digestible ways. So Ron Paul got me on the hook, and probably I'd say Gary Johnson reeled me in. And then obviously I got my start actually being an advocate and working for the party with the Jorgensen-Cohen campaign.
Excellent. What are your reflections on the campaign? What stood out to you most prominently in terms of some of the successes of the campaign?
I would say I saw a lot of people getting involved who wouldn't otherwise get involved. I don't know if that was the people involved in the campaign that spoke to them, or what it was, the message. But we got a lot of volunteers who we then converted to members here in PA from the Jorgensen-Cohen campaign. And I mean, I'm one of them. I started off as, I want to post memes for the Jorgensen campaign pretty much. And then I became the state social media director. And now I'm my county chair. I'm the chair of media relations and social media for the LPPA. And it's basically like a giant trap that they lured me in with the promise of, memes and posting fun things. And now I'm like, well, I have 8 minutes to breathe. Let me sign up for another volunteer role. But people, whether they loved her or didn't love her, it drew a lot of volunteers out who we were then able to convert to dues-paying members in the state party and probably the national party.
Yeah, and I was the Rhode Island coordinator, and I did a lot of work with the media for Richard Manzo, and absolutely correct. I met a lot of folks that I'd never seen at a libertarian event before, and a lot of these folks were already strongly libertarian. But Joe brought out an entire group of people that we'd never seen and contributed mightily. And you're right. So many of them have stayed around, much to their credit and much to our benefit. So without Joe, I think there was a chemistry there between different groups in the Joe Jorgensen movement. And of course, Spike played a huge role in that. Spike brought people out in droves. Spike came to Rhode Island, sat him down with someone who was very involved in the, if you will, in the recovery community. We had lunch, and she calls herself a libertarian now. And in an area of the country, in a part of a movement which is staunchly progressive, she considers herself proudly libertarian. And a lot of that has to do with literally a conversation with Spike Cohen. We had an event at a tiki bar, and I invited quietly a group of young people who represented some of the more extreme, if you will, elements of the socialist movement in the state. And we just had a conversation. And there was mutual respect when everyone left. And that's what we need right now. I think both in the party and nationally, a lot more mutual respect. Let's talk about metropolitan East Stroudsburg. And I laugh because I did go to school in Pennsylvania. And so I am familiar with the climb. It's a fascinating area because it's a college town. You've got industry. You're not that far from ag. You've got some traditional old school Rust Belt manufacturing in that area. Talk to me about East Stroudsburg in specific. And folks, this is the important part of the show. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to frame what I call lunch pail everyday issues that voters care about. Think back to the Clinton campaign. It's the economy, stupid, right? And that's why Bill Clinton became president, because he understood what the average person was worried about, if not obsessed about, at that moment of time, and it was the economy. So tell us a little bit about East Stroudsburg and its strengths and its challenges.
Yeah, so East Stroudsburg, I mean, it could be misleading. East Stroudsburg is actually even larger than just the borough, obviously. So East Stroudsburg does encompass a lot of different walks of life and stuff. The borough itself, though, is primarily, generally, it's going to be about 2/3, 60% to 2/3 blue leaning and urban leaning. So, I know certain issues are going to matter to the people in the borough more than others. I mean, I'm trying to focus on decriminalization. I'm trying to focus on opening up job opportunities with small businesses, getting out of the way of small businesses, and of course, there are issues that maybe right-leaning people would care about more that they would agree with me on. But looking at the demographics, it doesn't make sense to focus on those issues. So it is important to know what your demographics are, and to know, since if you know who your demographics are, you know what issues to focus on. And it doesn't mean I don't care about the more conservative issues, but they're not going to be necessarily winning issues in this election. Drug decriminalization, jobs, and revitalizing the town are going to be issues that are more important to the people who are going to be coming out to vote than some more traditional issues that might matter to voters who lean red in a lot of things. So it's just I'm focusing on the Democratic voters and the independents that make up the vast majority of the voter base. Which is A, it makes sense, and B, it doesn't really make sense for you to go out wasting your time trying to pick up 3 votes, and then you end up alienating hundreds or if not thousands of people who would otherwise vote for you.
Right, and that's as important a reflection of your resources and your time as well. How many voters are in the, if you will, within the population?
I had the exact number in my head, but roughly between 4,000 to 5,000 registered voters. In terms of active voters, we're putting my win number at between 800 and 1,000 votes for myself. Will give us the victory. Looking at it, we've had to go back a little bit to get those numbers because the last few elections have been an uncontested Democrat, which made some of the information more challenging to get, but it also made it a lot easier to get on the ballot because 2% of a winner's vote total is a lot easier when they don't have any competition.
That's okay. That's a point. It's a great one, and I haven't heard before.
I don't like seeing people run unopposed, but if I'm trying to get on the ballot, I'm not gonna argue it. I'm not gonna argue the fact that I think I should go back a few years so I can get more signatures. I'll take my wins as libertarians, we should take our victories every chance we can take them.
Wow, it's interesting because I'm, as I mentioned almost every week, one of the fun parts about this job is I'm a newspaper guy. Ink still streams through these wretched hands, if you will, from years and years of reading actual newspapers. But being able to go online is a lot of fun with respect to this effort. And I'm reading the Pocono Record right now, which is clearly the Gray Lady, the New York Times, of Eastern Pennsylvania. But it's interesting
No
because
comment.
but coincidentally, there is a article in today's about the census, if you will, in Monroe County, and they point to a significant population growth in the borough. They talk about a significant increase in the Hispanic vote, which is not unlike a lot of pockets in the Northeast. And just as an aside, not only is there a growth in the Hispanic vote, but there's also a growth in the political activity and the activism from the Hispanic community, who traditionally are extremely entrepreneurial, extremely reflective of the core values and virtues of both our statement of principles and our platform. Do you see that type of change occurring in the political landscape in your area in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And the people who make up the population around here would be even more entrepreneurial if they weren't held back by how do I say this on such a classy program? Bullcrap licensing and stuff like that. I mean, there are plenty of people who I know who do things on the side that they could make a legitimate business out of if they didn't have to pay an ignorant amount of money to get licensed by the state to do legally. And everything you said is right. The Hispanic and the black population is extremely entrepreneurial around here, and ideally, I would like to get rid of every regulation that makes it harder for them. But I'm going to start with local and borough regulations that make it harder for people. Even simple things like around here, you need a permit to have a yard sale or a sidewalk sale as a business.
Right.
We're getting tax revenue from our businesses, which I won't comment on my opinion on taxes, but the fact is the borough is getting tax revenue from these businesses and also making it harder for these businesses to create revenue. And I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I know that doesn't make a darn lick of sense at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're trying to collect revenue from someone, I would think that you try to make it as easy as possible for them to make as much money as possible. Right. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, I just tell people I want to get every level of government out of your way as much as possible, and this is the start. I'm going to start at the local level and get it out of the way as much as possible, and I'm sure this party will sucker me into running for things at even higher levels, and we'll take it from there. But I want to make the borough a better place first and foremost because it's where I live, and everybody likes to say libertarians should start local. So here I am, starting local.
Ryan Berinsky just weighed in, and I'll just officially announce that Ryan Berinsky, by the way, is the official campaign manager for the entire state of Pennsylvania.
I would like to announce that Ryan Berinsky is not a real libertarian.
There you go. But you talk about the role of the community and what type of economic development can take place. I live right outside of Providence, Rhode Island, which is a capital city. It's a larger city than, say, a place like East Stroudsburg. But there was a recognition, about 20 years or so ago, and he gets credit for it. I'm sure it was a team effort per se. But the then mayor, a gentleman by the name of Vincent A. Buddy Cianci, who's notorious for a number of reasons, was amongst the first mayors in America to understand that county seats, communities, downtowns are no longer typically places of work per se, that they are largely morphing into centers of entertainment. And the communities that can realize that and adjust accordingly will have great potential. And one of the things he did, for example, was establish a sales tax-free zone for art. Now, this is a larger city. Art is a big part of it because of Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design. But again, there was a reflection made, an analysis made, a judgment made of what's your strengths. Let's play to our strengths. You're looking to be mayor, so in a sense, you'll drive the economic train in the town. Is the city large enough to have an economic planner or some type of commerce corporation on the staff?
I do believe that we have a commerce committee. I'm not sure how much of a formal thing it really is at this point, but I've got plans to either create or strengthen one. I mean, I've gone to local businesses and told them like, hey, I know, a lot of politicians like to say, hey, I know what's best for you, and I'm just honest with people and say, I don't necessarily know what's best for you. Let me get the restrictions out of your way, and let me ask the people who know about running a business what's best for them so that I can do it. Creating a small business council, or whatever name we go with, is actually one of my top things that I want to get done if and when I'm elected mayor, so that we can get things done to help these people, because no one knows. I mean, I don't have to be preaching to this choir. Nobody knows how to run your life like you.
Right.
And I want to know from the experts when it comes to running small businesses, which are these small business owners. But yeah, we do have, and we also have a county-wide. I don't know if you would call it a county-wide or a regional-wide chamber of commerce. I believe it's the Poconos Chamber of Commerce, so it's kind of a regional thing. But I would love to get something even more localized set up, or if we do have something formalized, strengthen it.
Let's talk education. These same dramatic shifts, if you will, and it's relatively dramatic within the community itself, clearly portend great changes for the school systems. How would you define the state of schools in your town, specifically going to be mayor? What's the setup? Do you appoint the school board? Is the school board separately elected? Again, I understand that we're talking about socialist workers' paradise, Pennsylvania, and the means of production at every level need to be controlled by the by the plebe. But what's the specific setup, and what input will you have into that?
Well, the unions that I take donations from won't allow me to answer this question. So if we move on. But no, the school board is separately elected. I really don't have much of an impact on that, but I tell people my impact as mayor is essentially the same for every issue, and that is I am a megaphone for the people. If the people have issues, maybe they don't have the time to go to meetings, maybe they don't have the voice to get people's attention. Well, if I'm the mayor, they don't really have a choice. I'm going to get their attention, and I'm going to bring the issues to light. But I mean, and in terms of the schools around here, the quality of the education around here is good. But I mean, go find an area where people are pleased with how high their taxes are and the perceived quality of education. I mean, it's the same as everywhere. I mean, taxes should be lower, the quality of education should be higher. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, I went to school around here, so take that for what you will. I don't know if that's an indictment or an
endorsement,
a positive thing. Yeah, so the quality of education, though, with being as unbiased as possible, it's a good education system. I mean, there's room for improvement in everything. I don't know, perhaps maybe we could take the government out of things. It might get better. But hey, you didn't hear that from me.
There you go. Next issue up, of course, is criminal justice reform. Now, do you folks have a sizable police department, or do you outsource to county, state? How does the law enforcement work in East Stroudsburg?
We have a regional police force. It's the Stroud Area Regional Police Force that covers Stroudsburg and East Stroudsburg. Mm-hmm. I believe as mayor, I would be on the what do you want to call it? The police commission with the mayor of Stroudsburg and a handful of other people. Mm-hmm. So it's a regional thing. They do, and Pocono Mountain has a regional police force. So it's a couple of different regionals police forces around here. We also have the county sheriff's office right next door in Stroudsburg. But part of the plan is I'm going to go to use my role on the police commission to see if we can get, like I said, marijuana decriminalized, if not just in the borough, in the county, or at least in the jurisdiction of the Stroud area, aka Stroudsburg and East Stroudsburg, which I have a feeling that I would get support from the Stroudsburg mayor on, as she's an elected Democrat, and I know they either support decriminalization or at least like to say they do. So, you know, if I would at least be willing to call that bluff if it's not accurate and say, hey, come support me on this. You know, this is an issue we both care about.
Bring me up to date. Where is the state of Pennsylvania on recreational and medical?
Medical is, I'll say medical is legal. The list of ailments is pretty strict, and what you can get for it is pretty strict. And I'm not completely up to date on this because, well, if you like to exercise your other constitutional rights, perhaps maybe the Second Amendment, they won't allow you to have a medical marijuana card. So I'm not totally informed on it, but it's very specific which ailments you can get your card for, and then you can't just go in and buy a pound of weed. They like to use oils in pill form and stuff like that, make it as medical as possible. Although I know you can get cartridges for vapes and stuff like that. At least I've been told by my friends, of course. But we've gotten better than we were in the past 10 years, but it's still not a heck of a lot better than the Stone Age.
Right.
We're not like a couple, I forget which state it was out west. It was like, oh, mushrooms, yeah, we'll decriminalize those. We're a little ways away from them, but we're trying to get there slowly.
Right. No, understood.
It's the tough part about being a swing state too, you know. I mean, you just never quite have that large majority of people who want to get something in particular done. I mean, you see it in the presidential elections. 1 year will be red, 1 year will be blue, and then we pretty much end up not getting a whole hell of a lot done.
That's an interesting perspective, and I hadn't really thought of that before. In Rhode Island, where I live, it's beyond blue. They pretty much get to do whatever they want, except that the state financially is in tatters. So there's that. Let's talk about, of course, then the issue of our times, if you will, particularly as a libertarian. You can essentially, for the purpose of discussion, let's separate, if you will, the plague, as we call it here, or the Rona, or the COVID. There's really three stages. And the first stage, of course, with those initial month or two was a pure chaos where really no one knew if we were about to create, what we were really dealing with. And it depends who you talk to. And it's tough because at one hand, I love to take pot shots at the government, but there's too many people who've died. On the other hand, as libertarians, I would argue to you, particularly for all the people who say this proves you need big government. Well, holy cow! If we ever had a series of events that prove that we don't need big government, it's the government's response to COVID. That first stage, how did Pennsylvania respond to that first stage? How much was left up to, say, local folks, and say, for example, in Monroe County, and how did they respond?
It was left up to local to a degree at first, but Pennsylvania was pretty quick with the mask mandates and all that stuff, which, unless you're directly asking me, I'm not going to give my opinion on anything that has to do with this subject unless you really want to know. But Pennsylvania was pretty quick with the mask mandates and stuff like that. Unfortunately, they were also pretty quick with putting COVID patients into nursing homes, just like New York, which, hey, we could probably do an entire interview on that subject, but it was generally left up to local at first when we were still trying to figure things out. And then once, of course, part of me feels like we're still trying to figure some things out. But once once the people in charge at least thought they knew what was going on, the mask mandates came out, the shutdowns came out. Pennsylvania was shut down twice. The first time, it was a ghost town. I worked through it, and I'm not going to lie, going to work during the first shutdown was like a dream come true because there was nobody on the roads, which I still haven't gotten back used to, like other people being on the road. So I'll be in the left lane going, why are we going so slow? And I look and I'm like, oh, I'm still in shutdown driving mode. But and the second shutdown, there was a lot less people didn't put up with it quite as much. I believe we still had our meetings. Obviously we social distance, we did the mask, we were safe, but we still had our meetings. A couple of bars locally decided, look, we're going to have people social distance, we're going to have masks, we're going to be safe, but we know how to operate our business safely without being shut down. But it was pretty top down heavy here in Pennsylvania.
Oh, no. So then we moved into stage 2, which was, just at least up here in the Northeast, governors taking control of the situation, the Trump administration formally releasing it to the governors. You had, at least here in the Northeast, you literally had day-by-day micromanagement, periodic, they called it pauses, we called it purges, where government made these ham-handed, haphazard approaches to trying to manage a disease, which is amazing because they can't manage literally anything else. And there was a magical day in Rhode Island, by the way, where Rhode Island simultaneously, we managed to beat, I believe it was Serbia, to have the highest infection rate on the planet, while simultaneously, and this is where the magic is, folks, while simultaneously having the highest masking rate in the planet. So there's a chemistry there. Wow. Talk about controversial. But if you look at Pennsylvania during that bulk of the time, how did they react? Oh, did we lose? Oh, you're back.
Okay. Oh, I'm here. Yep, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Did you catch my question, or did we lose that?
No, it cut out for a second. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm wondering what that second stage, which was the bulk of the COVID experience. What does state government do, and what did local government do?
The state government, in my opinion, pretty much tried to do the same thing they did with the top-down heavy approach. I think people got better with the mat. And when I say better, I mean they adhered to the masking better. But businesses were a lot less willing to go through another shutdown because they were unable to go through another shutdown. I know most in government have never had a real job before, but in order to stay in business, you need to make money, and to make money, you need to provide a good or service. So if you're shut down, it's really hard to stay in business. So there were a good number more businesses this time who were like, look, we've learned enough more about this virus that we can be safe and still make money. And there were things like outdoor seating and more to-go orders, and my personal favorite, to-go beverages, where you can just go and they'll put a margarita in a cup holder and off you go. But not to worry, the state made sure it was safe by mandating that they put a piece of Scotch tape over the straw hole, because how the hell am I supposed to get that off before I get home?
Did they define the size of the Scotch tape? That's the important thing.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure they defined the size of the cup. They made sure that the straw had to be wrapped and separate. I mean, I couldn't have drank it on the way home if I wanted to. I didn't know how to get the tape off or the lid off or the straw out of the wrapper. I was just lost. So I was just thankful for the state, to keep me safe. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. I might have spilled it on myself and crashed. Who knows?
How did folks in the business community, how did folks react? Do you sense, and this was sort of a lead up to this question, are people in your community and just say the greater county at large, are they still upset about what happened, the incompetence, the chaos, the unnecessary deaths, the unnecessary closures of business? Is there any sort of residue, a bad taste in the mouth of citizens in your community?
There are still those, and there always will be, who pray to St. Fauci and St. Wolf for protection. But every single day, there are more people who realize the shutdowns were trash. I mean, everybody has their opinions on the masks and vaccines. I'm not touching that with a 30-foot pole, but there are more and more people who realize that the shutdowns were not quite necessarily designed for your safety. When you shut down a mom and pop store that can hold 5 people, but allow 300 people into a Walmart, I'm not exactly sure how that's to help prevent the spread of a virus. I would feel safer in a smaller environment with a couple of people than I would a large environment with a massive number of people. Or if I didn't feel safe, I would wear a mask or get vaccinated or what have you, which, but I've always said the libertarian position on issues is the easiest to preach, because every single day the government makes it easier to preach it. Every single day there are more and more people who you can go up to and say, hey, you think the government's doing a good job? And they're going to tell you no. It's just becoming easier and easier to be a principled libertarian and run on those principles, because people around here, people everywhere, are just tired of it. They're tired of the government saying they care about you, but it's just a power grab. They're tired of the government saying they want to help you, but they're just suppressing your freedoms and your rights to grow your business how you see fit. And unfortunately, this whole thing has turned into a bit of a power grab, but if you choose to look at it the right way, it's also become a huge opportunity to spread libertarian principles and messaging.
Excellent, folks. If you just joined us, we're sort of about to go into the last quarter of this match here. Joel Getz is joining us from the greater East Stroudsburg metropolitan area. As we mentioned, truly the Paris of Eastern Pennsylvania. The same region that, of course, brings you the office. I have to throw in the office dig there. But ultimately, representing an entirely new generation of libertarian activists / community leaders. And we don't use the word governing here. We like to use the word, but we've got a couple of descriptions. Stewardship is one of them. He's running for mayor in a moderately sized town with the sort of complexities that, well, most towns in America have these days. Let's talk about the campaign itself. We joked about the Pocono paper. What type of media landscape do you have to deal with, and how are you approaching getting coverage, if you will, or at least getting participation in any events that might be coming up?
So I just started messaging a couple. We've got a couple of local stations that are more countywide. We've got a really localized one. We've got the Pocono Record, like you said, which is the crown jewel of newspapers, if you don't know how to read. And I've sent them a message this week, actually, looking to get interviewed and stuff like that. But we're going to put a heavy push on them here soon. But I was actually on the radio. It was 96.7, which is a probably most popular or top 2 in terms of popularity locally. And I was on the radio there. So that was really good. And he actually wants to have me back on. He wants to have all 3 candidates for the election back on before November. So that's actually been really great. I mean, we'd love more press, we'd love more attention, but we're working towards it. We're just entering that phase where we're really going to put a hardcore press on, well, full court press on the press. And between that and direct mailers, we're really about to kick it into overdrive to say, hey, here I am. Here's why you should vote for me. Although we have had good luck with some guerrilla marketing in terms of I've got my rack cards, business cards, and pens out at a handful of local businesses. Whenever we do door knocking, we go to a local establishment for an adult beverage or two. We set up a couple of signs and some stuff, and get the name out. So we've done a really good job with the more guerrilla marketing tactics,
Right.
and we're about to kick it into overdrive on the more typical ones.
Is there a strong tradition there of political talk radio, or are you just having to find your way, sort your way through, typical commercial radio?
More typical commercial radio. The mayor of Stroudsburg, Tara, is kind of an outlier in terms of, I think, what the norm is. She doesn't just treat being mayor as a figurehead position. She's outspoken. She makes her thoughts and opinions known, and does a very good job at being an advocate for what people in the community want. And I'll stop there before people accuse me of being too Democrat friendly. But she's good at her job, and that's what I want to be. We've had the same mayor for a number of years now, and he's a good guy, friendly guy, all that.
Right.
But if I hadn't been to council meetings, I wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup, and I could pick the mayor of Stroudsburg out of a lineup easily, and I don't live there.
Right.
So I kind of want to change the way the mayor of East Stroudsburg does things and is perceived. I want it to be, a soapbox for people's issues to get spoken about.
The overall picture in terms of door to door, are people a little bit more relaxed now? That, last year at this time we were talking to candidates who, made a couple of furtive abortive attempts at going door to door, and people just weren't answering the opening the door, and you could see them peering through the shades as if you were a vacuum cleaner salesman. Are folks more relaxed about that? And is that part of the tradition in your town where you're expected to go door to door and press the flesh?
They are more relaxed. I door knocked for Jorgensen and whatnot, and collected signatures. It was a weird time. We still get people who I'm vaccinated. I don't apparently need to wear a mask according to CDC guidelines. But when I go up to people's doors, I knock, and I take a large step back. That way, they can gauge how comfortable they are. If they want to step in for a conversation, great. If they want to stay a few feet back, do what you need to do. I've always got a mask with me. One person asked if I'd wear a mask. I threw a mask on. We had a conversation. It is what it is. I'm on their property. If they want me to do something, I do what makes them feel comfortable. But people are definitely a lot more comfortable with it now. You still get some people who kind of peer through the door, but it doesn't seem to be COVID reasoning. It seems to be like, hey, here's this guy with a big old beard I've never seen before. Why the hell is he here? But honestly, in terms of whether it's expected or not, no. I don't think our current mayor has door knocked unless he did for his first campaign years ago. I know for a fact one of my opponents isn't, and I'm 99% confident that my other opponent isn't, because he's a well-known name and he's gonna coast on being a well-known name. And I make it a point to people to say I start off with two things. One, I'm introducing myself because I'm your neighbor, and two, because I'm running for mayor. People aren't necessarily used to having people knock on their door around here to introduce themselves as a political candidate or as a neighbor, really. And that's a big part of the plan is, just doing that alone is going to get some votes where people are going to go, hey, I remember that guy. He actually took the time to come knock on my door. I like that about him. And hey, it might be a cheap vote or two, but I'm going to take all the cheap votes I can get. If I can get a handful of votes doing a minimal amount of work, I'm going to take it every chance I get. But I set a goal of knocking on every single door in this borough, and I don't know if I'm going to get to every single door, but I'm going to be out there limping, sweating, and dragging my feet behind me, trying to get to every single door in this borough to introduce myself to people and tell them that I care about them, and I think I have the skills to do what's best for this borough.
Excellent. As they say in the vernacular, you have the skills to, in fact, pay the bills. The before we get involved in my favorite part of the show, which of course is shameless self-promotion, I had a question for you, and I think you had a question for me. So can you explain to our listeners exactly what Scrapple is?
Well, I can, and it's going to be a very political answer because as a Pennsylvanian, I don't want to give you my opinion on Scrapple. So what Scrapple is it's a personal decision that one has to make on whether or not they will choose to enjoy such a dish that many people enjoy. And I say that if you enjoy it, then you should enjoy it because it harms no one. And that's my full answer on Scrapple because that's what I know about it.
Okay, we won't discuss the fact that it's made that Tim McMaster Scrapple rules, particularly Scrapple rules. I think between one in the morning and 5 in the morning, Scrapple.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you see that goat in Tim McMaster's photo. Is Tim McMaster also has a beard like that goat? So of course he would love Scrapple. And also Tim McMaster is a wonderful human being who is also running for office. You should go to his Facebook page as well. And I would highly suggest him for this program.
Actually, he's been on twice. So it's
he's been on twice, Pat.
It's twice, yeah. He's part of the board of directors here.
Pat, you've had him on twice, and this is the first time I'm ending this interview now. Goodbye.
You had a question for me. I have. You were going to ask me something.
I do have a question, and this is going to be very important, Pat, because
the future
this is
of our
how
relationship.
I basically. Exactly. This is how I judge people. What are your thoughts on turkey bacon?
It just
there is a correct answer, by the way.
No, and it's actually astonishingly simple and requires no real thought. Turkey bacon is an abomination. Turkeys were not meant to be baconed. There is only one form of animal which should be involved in bacon, which is ironically the same animal involved in Scrapple. So as far as I'm concerned, and I did not mince words, as they say, the pig is in fact a seminal part of literally every man's meal, whether it be barbecue, pork chops, Scrapple, bacon. So I always give high homage to the mighty pig. All right.
Well, you have passed with flying colors, and you are obviously a true libertarian. And I will just a quick background on that question. Bonnie MF, whose comments you've had on the screen a few times, we both came into the Jorgensen campaign together, and she's a fan of turkey bacon because she's how do you say it? How do you say it in English? A communist. And so I started basically just making the joke with every podcast I've been on. So now Cajun Libertarian, Matt Wright, Spike Cohen all know that if they hear the words turkey bacon, they think of us. And I'm actually gonna end up sponsoring Cajun's show where he has a segment where he has to ask every single guest how they feel about turkey bacon.
It's just there's none of that amazing consistency. You don't get, first of all, the first issue is you don't get burned and spattered by turkey bacon. You just don't. It doesn't have
right,
that.
Which is part of the fun. I mean, as a libertarian masochist, I want my food to hurt me.
And bacon does in so many ways. It is in fact a gift that keeps on giving. So the notion, by the way, which you got me going here. The notion of finally reaching the promised land, which, if you're a fast foodie like I am, is in fact the northeasternmost Waffle House in America, which I believe it was in Easton, is now in Allentown, Pennsylvania. All right. For which the entire point of me going out to your political campaign in Pennsylvania was wrapped around, only to get there and have missed closing at what? They close it at 7:00 at night. For the love of God.
Pat, I got good news, Pat. I recently started a job about a month ago that is about 50 yards behind that Waffle House, and I can confirm that they are back open to 24/7, sir.
All right, because I'm headed to Pennsylvania again soon, and I fully expect to be able to embrace the entire Waffle House experience. Of course, there was one question on my mind. Does Pennsylvania-based Waffle Houses deviate from, if you will, the corporate Bible of bacon And do they, in fact, let's go full circle here before we close out the show and say, can you get Scrapple at a Pennsylvania Waffle House? I don't
honestly think that. I don't think that you can. And I will say it is a little less Waffle House like up here in the north because, I've never seen a fight or anything like that happen at a Waffle House here in Pennsylvania, which is disappointing. My friend Bonnie told me that if you walk into a Waffle House and your feet don't stick to the floor, then it's not a real Waffle House.
Well, and also, you live in a socialist workers' paradise if you pull up to the Waffle House and can actually see people inside, because the earlier practice of handing out cigarettes as you walk in the door at a Waffle House, you smoke right away, which would cloud up the windows, which only added to the experience.
When I leave work at like 5:30, 6 a.m. and I drive behind the Waffle House and I see employees out there smoking cigarettes, I go, I'm proud of this Waffle House. This is the way God intended. Like if I walked in there and if I see them smoking a cigarette while they cook my bacon, I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna be one of the best breakfasts I've ever had.
Right. Now, again, another important question: what do you top your grits with?
Oh, what do I top my grits? Oh, you mean in terms of salt or sugar?
Or in fact, do you employ the fine Waffle House chili in any of its variety of environments?
Ooh. I have never used the Waffle House chili. I have recently had the was it bacon? Or I had the bacon and grits bowl, which was amazing. And in terms of condiment, I always go, I'm a salt guy instead of sugar because my arteries are just too opened up, and I'm just trying to close them. I'm just trying to close them up. Yeah, so I'm just trying to put salt on I'll salt my bacon. I don't care. I'm a libertarian. I do what I want.
There you go. Well, shameless self-promotion. I'm told you're quite good at it. Tell folks where they can find your campaign or any other campaigns that you are involved in, because there is a handful of people who are just watching your affiliate is astonishing because of just the sheer volume of work that people are able to produce. I saw it firsthand at the convention. You guys had the ultimate curveball thrown at you with the going outside thing with the bar. And listen, I don't listen. If you don't get to the voting, if you don't get to the platforms, if you don't get to the speeches, that's all good. But if you can't keep the bar open, what the hell what's the point?
Pat, I had 8 hours of sleep combined those 2 nights, and I drink to forget about that convention. So I understand. And I don't know what anybody's talking about with shameless promotions, but if I were to know what they were talking about, I would say that they should go to Facebook and go to Getz for Mayor of East Stroudsburg, or GetzForMayor.com. That's GETZ, the number 4 mayor.com/donate. Like I said, our big push right now is to get money for direct mailers. Apparently that's not cheap because what the hell, post office. And then once you're done giving me all of your money, if you have any more spare change, you should go on Facebook and go to Bonnie Flaherty for state representative. You'll be able to find her PayPal there. She's also going to be an elected auditor thanks to the Mullen maneuver. Check out Nicole Schultz for lieutenant governor,
right.
Joseph P. Zalowski for governor of Pennsylvania, and Steve Sheets for U.S. Senate. All great libertarian candidates in Pennsylvania. And, of course, the fantastic Liz Terwilliger, whose event Perspectives on Freedom I will be attending with Bonnie, Steve, and, of course, Tasha and her spouse.
Right. Mr. Tasha Cohen. Yes, something like that. Right. Isn't that
I forget his name, but everybody just shows up for Tasha and then they deal with the guy. So it is what it is.
Every family's got one. Well, listen, thank you for joining us this evening for these austere, if you will, going-ons. And again, folks, if you'd like to join us on the show in the coming weeks, we've got the next couple weeks lined up. But I believe, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Pat, I don't want Tim McMaster to kick my ass. So also go to Tim McMaster on Facebook. He is running for office, and he's also a very large professional wrestler, former professional wrestler. So yes, please donate all of your money to him so he doesn't kill me.
Right. I thought the GOAT was Tim. I'm sorry. Anyhow,
Well, it's hard to same thing. Just give them your money.
there you go. Fair enough. But again, thanks for joining us. I know that other people in the room are going to be joining us in the coming weeks. Who said candidate for order, and we've also got a very special guest next week. He is running to be the governor of New Jersey, your counterpart, just across the river. And by the way, my favorite Delaware River crossing is the one with the Taco Bell right after you get over after you get over. I think that's on 80. All right.
Yes, sir.
So thanks for joining us. And listen, at some point, one of the things we're going to do during the fall are going to involve sort of having groups of people on at once. We'll call them roundtables, we'll call them whatever. But a few months ago, when we had several young men who were running for your state general assembly on, it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of great give and take and back and forth on that. So I think we're going to do something like that, sort of Hollywood Square style, in the coming weeks with folks from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My goal is to get actually what do you guys up to, like 600 or 700 candidates, 1,000 candidates, something like that?
Probably a million. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, Pat. I'd love to be on again, but I'll say this publicly. I don't want to be on with that damn Steve Sheets.
Yeah, well,
all right.
We're
the rest of us.
We're gonna have
the rest of us need a chance to talk.
Right.
And
it's just. But we're gonna have one of those. There's a word for it. I won't say it, but we're gonna have one of those meetings, right? That families have. Oh man,
perfect,
folks. On that note, listen. Oh, by the way, if you could plug Liz's event, that would be great. Actually,
Liz's event is, of course, called Perspectives on Freedom, and I am pulling up her website right now because I actually just registered myself. It's LizTerwilligerforcongress.org. That's Liz, Liz Terwilliger, TerWillger for Congress. The word for, not like my lazy spelling. It's going to be the lineup is going to be fantastic. Everyone who's speaking is a great person except for Bonnie Flaherty. And it's just going to be a fantastic event. But I mean, you get to meet Tasha, you get to meet Spike. I'll be there, and you just have to put up with listening to Bonnie Flaherty for a few minutes. And that's a small price to pay to meet wonderful libertarians.
Excellent. Again, thanks for joining us, folks. You've been listening to, Candidate's Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, John Gapso on the big board. He's the one who gives you the funny graphics and the maps of crazy districting and newspaper articles, all the stuff that makes this, fun and entertaining and also informational. I'm your host, Pat Ford. It is, as always, a singular honor to stand alongside these folks who sometimes funny, sometimes profane, always passionate, always reflective of the Libertarian Statement of Principles, the Libertarian Party platform, the Libertarian Party philosophy. It is clear when you talk to candidates like we did tonight, and the past year and a half, that freedom is in fact part of their DNA. And sometimes the biggest challenge is to understand folks for whom don't have that clear understanding of just what they're missing. The opportunities that are wrested away from them by a government ostensibly concerned with their personal welfare, but quite frankly, more personally concerned with aggregating power. We've seen through this COVID crisis, if you will, the failures of government at work. And it's cost people their lives. The inability to have a free market for medical care that would have promoted the facilities necessary to have been involved in early intervention, early testing, and, if one makes the decision, early inoculation. The theft, it's hard for me to put this in words, it's the theft of the individual civil liberties of literally millions of business owners around this nation who saw arbitrary and capricious closings, seizures of their businesses, while big box stores just down the road were able to engage in commerce, and the cost to families of that. The shutdown of so many of our educational institutions, and if you will, the loss of opportunity for so many of our young, both college and technical school graduates. Shuttling folks at risk to different facilities, having the audacity to think that they understood the needs of these individuals, for some who ended up passing because of it, that they were a more important factor in making decisions for these individuals than their families themselves. We need to make sure that this never happens again, ever. For folks who are going to be at the LNC meeting in Kentucky, we're going to be working out a way, we haven't yet to figure it out yet, but we're going to be doing some of this type of programming while we're in Kentucky on the road at the LNC meeting. That is the Labor Day weekend in just a couple of short weeks. I look forward to anyone in Kentucky who is a candidate, wants to reach out to us and get some time on the air maybe that weekend. It's all possible. We're going to try and make it happen. Folks, it's time to get to work. We'll see you Monday night, as well as next Friday night, with the same type of programming. Have a wonderful, safe, adventurous weekend. We'll see you soon.